Some of you might have seen my game where I have all the characters as 2D sprites with a directional movement. Now, originally I was taking the animations and then the characters from Unreal, put them into Blender. It was a whole thing just to render out, but I've gone ahead and created a system in Unreal where you can take a character like this and transform it into this, where you can have all the animations and all the sprites created in one go. Now, this does render out the sprites. You just have to bring them in and set them up, but the actual creation of the sprites is more automated. But really, all it's doing is just rendering 8 directions of the camera all with one click. So while I am showing this kind of in the context of this setup, this is useful just in general for anyone that needs to just show off their work from multiple camera angles in one go. If you're a character artist or someone doing animations, this can get you the animation rendered out from multiple camera angles at once. So that way, when you show it to your supervisor or just want to review something, you don't have to go through and change it for every single one. And it's very easy to adjust the length that it's going to render based on the animation. So let me show you how it's set up. Here I am in a new project. All I have in here basically is the Paragon character that I brought in, and there's the animation. If I press Alt-S to simulate, you can see there's her run, and that's going to be the animation that we're playing with. I also have another one. This is just the same run, but I've just chopped it off, and you can see it pops a little bit. This is just so I can easily show you that you can change the length of the timeline to adjust no matter which one it is. Very easy. With her in Origin now, let's enable the main thing we need. So I'll go under Edit Plugins and search for Movie Render Queue. Make sure Movie Render Queue is enabled and restart your engine if needed. Now, if you're like me and really dislike Movie Render Queue, don't worry. Very minimal setup here. And once it's set up, you don't really have to do much inside of Movie Render Queue aside from just basically click render. So I'll make it as painless as possible for you. Because trust me, I understand the pain. Okay, here in my tutorial folder, I'll go ahead and get started. I'll right click, and what I want to grab is a level sequence. So I'm going to just type in level SE to grab a level sequence and grab one of these. I'll call this LS for level sequence _ multi-directional render. So awesome, we have this. I can go ahead and open it up, and this opens up the sequencer here. Now all I want to do is take our character. Now right now it's named Jog Forward. I'll just go ahead and press F2 to rename it. I'll call this character animation, just like that. And I'll just go ahead and click and drag it right into here. So inside of our sequencer, we have the character animation. Now a couple of things to note is it does come in with transforms, so you can set those. We don't actually want this. So I'm going to right click on it. I just click delete. So the transforms are going to be whatever you have it. It's not overriding anything. You can keep that in. It'll just be at origin. Again, personally, I'm not a fan of sequencer and all of this. So I just made it basically do the least impossible inside of sequencer, only what I really needed to, which is just render. And now you have this animation section. So here we can hit the plus button. You'll see there's our 2 animations. So I'll go ahead and select, for example, Jog Forward, and you can see there's our Jog Forward animation. I can go ahead and delete it and then press the button again, Jog Forward cut. You can see this one's shorter. If I go ahead and add another one on top, it'll just add it as a new line. We don't want multiple animations, so I'll undo that and I'll just add the regular Jog Forward. We just set the length of this, so I'll just go ahead and go all the way to the end here of this animation. It's very easy to see because of how it's set up. And when you position your timeline here, in the bottom left, you have this red bracket basically. If you click that, it will set your timeline to that length. And so basically, it's as simple as deleting the animation you don't want, going to the start of everything, or pressing either one of these buttons. That'll get you to the start, and then re-adding the one you do want. Go to the end and press the red bracket. So very easy to set up and switch. Let's go back to Jog Forward, and we'll use this for the demonstration. So okay, we have this, but how do we set up the cameras? So for my setup, I'm using orthographic cameras. So I'll show you up the values and everything I use for my orthographic cameras, so you can get a very similar result. I'm going to go here in the top left corner and add ourselves a camera. Now, because I'm doing orthographic, I have to use the camera actor, but this will work with cinema camera actors as well. If you're doing something more for film or something else where you just maybe want to get a scene from multiple angles at once, whatever you'd like, this will allow you to do it. In my case, because it's orthographic, regular camera actor it is. So I'll go ahead and create one. And then in the detail panel here, we're going to change the projection mode here to orthographic. Ortho width, I'm going to set to 200. I'm going to change the aspect ratio to 1.0. And then I'm going to take this camera and I'm going to put it in front of the character, just looking right at her basically. So 0, 0, -90. I want to make sure it's centered. So I'm going to put 0 in the X. So that way it's dead center. And because it's orthographic camera, I have 1.0. Whatever this ortho width you choose, you move it up half of that distance. So if I move it up to 100, her feet are now perfectly on the ground. If the orthographic here is 300, half of 300 is 150. It is moved up 150. That's pretty simple to do. One is half of the other. I'll go ahead and set it to something like be 220. and I'll do 110 offset. So now I want to go ahead and position the camera pretty much for the other directions. But before I do that, I'm going to rename the camera actor. Because the sequence that I'm going to get is all going to be put into one location, I want to split it up by camera name. So in my case, I'm just going to call this cam 1, 2, 3, 4, so I know and control the sequence and order of things. But for your use case, you might want to call it something else. Just know we're setting it up to have the camera name be in the file name that you render out. So I'll go ahead and just rename this cam_1. Then what I'm going to do is just Alt, move it over, rotate it 90 degrees. And again, because now we're moving in the x-axis here, I want y to be at 0. That way I know that it is actually in the correct center position. And by the way, back and forward doesn't matter as long as the person or whatever it is in front of the camera. So now I can just go ahead and take the next one, Alt drag, and then rotate it 180 degrees. Same thing with this one, Alt drag, rotate 180 degrees. And we'll just do a setup with 4. Obviously, you can do it with multiple. My setup involves 8 cameras. If you want to, for example, rotate it 45 degrees and you don't want to guess, an easy solution is to go ahead and add yourselves an actor, just regular actor component, make sure it's an origin, and then put one of the cameras underneath it. And now if I rotate the actual actor itself, the camera moves. So you can go ahead and angle it exactly at 45-degree angle. And whether or not the actor stays in the outliner doesn't matter at all. So fantastic. We have the cameras now all in here. So now what I'm going to do is select all 4 of these cameras and drag them into the sequencer. Now, when I do this, it is going to give us a transform and a camera component. I don't want any of this. I'm going to control click on all of these and I'm going to delete it. Specifically, the transform is the one you want to get rid of the most. I'm going to delete all of that. And I'll turn off the camera preview by clicking on the lit camera icon. The reason you want to get rid of the transform is if you adjust the orthographic size, again, I like to do it in the outliner on the detail panel. If you change the size, you want to move it up and the sequencer will override that translation. If you like the sequencer, you could set it all up in there and modify it all there. I personally don't like it, so I'm showing you guys how I do it. You have options though. So awesome. We have this. We can go ahead and click this camera icon to preview any of them. If you press Alt 4, you can actually see the full lit preview here. So awesome. And now let's set up the movie render queue. For that, we will go under Window, Cinematics, Movie Render Queue. And then you'll have this little pop-up. To set it up is very simple. We'll hit the Render Plus button here, and we'll select the LS Multi-Directional Render. I believe this is one of the default engine ones. We don't need it, so I'll go ahead and select it. By default, it will try to put it into the project directory, Saved Movie Renders, and you can always just click this and it will just open the location. The main thing we want to do is change the settings. For that, we'll click this drop down and I'm going to change it to the movie render graph, the new beta feature. So once I change that, it will select the default render graph. We don't want that. We want to make a new one. So what I'm going to do is click on the default render graph. I'll just click to select it. Now it will open this and then on the top, it will say the default graph asset is being edited. Save as to save a new graph asset. This is the default. We don't want to mess with the default. So I'll do as it says, file, save as. I'm going to put it in the tutorial folder with MRG for movie render graph _ multi-directional render. When I hit save, it automatically closes the other one and opens the new one. So now that we have this new MRG, I can go ahead, click the drop down and select it from this drop down. So it's going to use this new graph that we customize. Awesome. Now, so I don't have to reselect this every single time, in the top right for unsafe queue, we'll click it and click save queue as. I'll put in the tutorial folder again. I'll call this MRQ for movie render queue _ multi-directional render. So at any point, if I go ahead and close this, I can just reopen this MRQ file and it will have all this things set up. Fantastic. Now let's go ahead and come in here. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I saw that this has nodes, I became a lot happier. Nodes are much easier for me to understand than the old MRQ system. And don't worry, we'll go through all of these things step by step so you know everything we're changing or adding to it. The first thing you need to know is it first does the globals and then it does all of the layers. So these are the overall global settings. So under the global settings, we have warm-up settings. So here by default, it has 64 warm-up frames and it emulates motion blur. In my case, I don't want to emulate motion blur because it's doing sprite renders and I also don't need 64 frames of warm-up. We'll just have something like 5 frames. You do want some warm-up frames for your animations. Otherwise, I've noticed that the first couple of frames will have artifacting. Probably could get away with even less frames of warm-up, maybe like 2 or 3. You can try it out for yourself and adjust as needed. By the time it takes to render those few frames as a warm-up, it's really not worth fiddling it to that degree. The next one is the global game overrides. Here, you can disable texture streaming, change your scalability, and in general, control things like lumen layers. For what I'm doing, I leave everything on default here. I don't need to have any global game overrides. The main one is actually the one afterwards, this global output settings. So the main one here is the output directory. I can go ahead and check this and change the directory where it's being saved. In my case, I'm perfectly happy with putting into the movie render section, but if you have a place where you want to put Like for example, you want to just render directly to the server if that's possible where you are. You can just set it up here and it'll just go directly where you need it to. Now for the sprites, I want to change the output resolution for sure. In my case, I want to make it 100 by 100, but the lock is turned on, so it made the bottom 156. I'll go uncheck this and set it to be 100 by 100 this way. I'll also change the frame rate here to 15 frames a second. That is just the frame rate that I'm using for my characters. I felt since the standard is usually 1630, just continue to go down in half is very simple to figure out. So if I ever use a 30 frame per second animation, I know I just render every other frame, and that's why I went to 15 frames a second. Now I go ahead and make sure override existing output is turned on, just because I wanted to always override it. You can disable that if you'd like. And I also changed the frame number offset by 1. If you don't, your frames will start at 0. So it'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd like to start it at 1, which is why I do a 1 frame offset. That way, 1, 2, 3, 4 is how it's actually going to go. Again, this is all dependent on what you need. It's very customizable here. That's all for these global settings, but there's actually one I want to add here, and it is quite important. If I right click and search for camera, there's a camera settings under globals. I'll go ahead and plug this camera settings after the global output settings. I'm going to plug it in all the way through and I'll select it. And here you'll see we have a few camera settings: shutter timing, overscan percentage override, and the bottom one, render all cameras. I want that on. And so what this does, this one checkbox, is it will now render every camera separately. Instead of just rendering your camera cuts, it is now going to render all cameras all separately. Just perfect. You still need to set up the actual beauty pass and the normal pass. I'll start with the beauty pass. I go to the deferred renderer. I'm going to change the anti-aliasing method to none. It is sprites, so I want it to be as sharp as possible. I don't want any manual anti-aliasing. I can always clean it up in a different software like a sprite. But if you wanted to, you could even change the mode that you're actually rendering here. For example, I'm rendering lit. But if you wanted a different pass here, you could see if it just already exists. For example, you can render either player collisions or the reflections or just the lighting, whatever you'd like. I'm keeping it on lit. This is what we want, which is great. I am going to change a few things, starting with this JPEG sequence. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. I'm going to right click and search for PNG sequence instead, because I want an alpha for my character. Now, this is also where you specify where you're putting it inside of the global output folder. So here, the file name format is sequence name.layername.frame number. I want to change the sequence name, so go ahead and select everything inside of here, the sequence name part. I'll go ahead and delete it, and you'll have the whole drop down here. So this is all the options you have. I want camera name. So it's going to be camera name.layername, which is the thing that we're calling it here, .frame number. Now let's go ahead and select the render layer, and let's actually give it a name. I'll call this diffuse. Only reason I'm calling it diffuse is because by default in Unreal, if you bring in an _D and _N for the sprites using a JSON file, then it'll automatically understand that one is the colored version and one is the normal. I don't know why it's _D and _N, like diffuse to normal, but it is, so I just got used to, for sprites specifically, calling it diffuse for the color pass. Now, if I wanted to, I could already just plug this in and I will just render out things as they are in the correct location and everything. But what I want to do is render it out without any of the background or anything around the character. I just want the character and nothing else. The lighting, of course, I should still have effect on it, but that's it. To do that is very simple. We basically need to make everything else a cutout, or a holdout, I guess it's technically called. So with the character selected, I'm going to go in the top left corner under select. I'm going to invert selection. So it's now selected everything in the world except the character. And now I'm going to go back in here and add ourselves a new collection. Now right click and search for collection. I'll grab ourselves a new collection, and this is going to go right after the PNG sequence. And now in this collection node, I'll go ahead and add a condition group. Now let's open it up. We can do it by actor name, and you can have a lot of different options: actor type, actor tag, or just plain actor. I'm going to just select just plain actor, and then I'm going to click this plus button, and then you can do add selected in outliner. So let's just go ahead and put everything in here. The plan is to ignore all of this in terms of rendering. We just need a collection name here, and I'm going to just call it non-character. So awesome, we have a collection, but we're not doing anything with it. To actually have all of this stuff called out, I'll right click and grab ourselves a modifier. Now it's not super descriptive. It doesn't say what it's actually modifying or anything, but under visibility here, you could see we have a holdout option. So if I turn on holdout and click the checkbox on the right, you'll get a thing in the bottom right corner says you need something enabled. So I'll go ahead and enable this by clicking this enable default engine.ini. Now it wants to restart. I'm not going to restart just yet, just so I can set this up fully here, and then I'll click the restart button. All we need to do here is click the plus button on the collection, add our non-character collection, and give it a modifier name. I'll call this holdout. And then this goes all the way through. Now I'll save everything and quickly just explain the process here. We've set the settings. We've told it to be a PNG sequence. We selected everything except the character, and and then told it to ignore it in the final render by making it a holdout. And then we called the render layer diffuse, and that's going in the default layer. So I'll go ahead and click restart now. Already, if I want to, I can go ahead and open the movie render queue. As you can see, that it still has all our settings. And then just click render local, and you'll see here, there's our diffuse. It's already done. Let's click this folder so we go to that location. And you can see there's our setup, but something is on here. It says main_camera.diffuse. That's not all the cameras. There's a few little things that we still need to adjust. I'll go ahead and just select all of this and click delete. And then I'll open up the level sequence one more time. Now, all of these cameras are here, but they just need the component of the cameras. So I'm going to hit plus and I'm going to add the camera component to all of them. So this is like the actor and this is the component of the camera itself. So I'm going to just click to add the camera component to all of these. So now that we have the camera components here, if I go back to the movie render queue and click render local, you'll see I have 4 there that popped up. Now this is super fast, but now if you look in the movie renders folder, you can see cam 1, a little bit lower is cam 2. You see it's the new direction, cam 3, and then cam 4. And each one of these starts at frame 1, 2, 3, 4. At 15 frames a second, it does the entire thing. That's pretty good so far. Let's go ahead and put this into its own folder. And I want to also render out a normal pass. So that way, if you want to, you can bring in your sprites with a normal map that's going to just know left to right, up and down. That way it has some effect on lighting if you so wish. And this will also show you how to set up just world post-process materials. So if you create your own, you know how to use it, even if you don't necessarily need a normal map. I'm going to need my own material. So I'm going to right click, go to material, select material. I'll call it m_camera normal and open it up. The material domain is not surface. It is a post process and is a super simple material. It's going to right click and search for scene texture. You want to grab scene texture, not scene color. And here we want to change the scene texture ID from scene color to world normal. Now I don't want to use world normal. I want to use camera normal. World normal goes -1 to 1 in all axes. We don't want -1. We want to basically create a regular normal map effectively. So we just need to transform one into the other. So I'll just drag out and search for transform. And under vector operations, transform, we'll grab that. And we just want to change it, the source from world space, because it is a world normal, and we'll change it to be camera space or view space. This just changes based on shadow stuff, but we're not doing shadows with the system. So I'll just go ahead and select camera space, and I'll plug that into the emissive color. And when I do, you can see there's our preview. So no matter how I rotate this, the background changes, which is fine, but the object always has red on the right, green on top. So the left and right effectively is the red channel, and the up and down is the green channel. And as you know, that's basically what a normal is, because the normal map is basically always pure blue. So awesome, we have this. We go ahead and apply and save. And if I go back to the movie render graph, we can go ahead and add a new layer. So I want a new input. So I hit plus on the new input. And then with it selected on the top right here, I can go ahead and rename it. I'll call it something like normal pass. We also need an output. So I'll hit a new plus button for the output, select the output here. Unfortunately, cannot hit F2 to rename it. That would be nice. You have to go all the way to the other side to change the name. I'll call this normal pass here as well. Now, the main reason why I'm separating out these in separate layers is because we want to configure them slightly differently, because unfortunately, from my experience, and which is the main thing I want to show with this, is the post-process material refused to work with PNG. I think it's because of the alpha. So we're going to just render out a JPEG sequence instead of a PNG sequence, which is fine. We don't really need the alpha once we have it already in one location, because we could just always use that everywhere else. Duplicate information, not necessary. So I'm just going to select all of this, press C to comment it. I'll call this diffuse. And then I'm going to select all of this, Control D, and duplicate it down and plug it in with normal pass and normal pass. And now let's configure some things. The first thing is under this deferred renderer. We're going to make use of this post-process materials. So I'm going to check include beauty render in output. We don't want the beauty render. We're specifically only rendering the post-process here. Otherwise, you'll get both, but we don't need the beauty because we already have one with alpha. And the main thing here is this is where you specify the name where you're saving it. Previously up here, we did it on the PNG sequence. This is the file name format. But now that we're using this post-process materials, it actually is going here. So what I'm going to do is go to the PNG sequence, just take all of this, copy it, and put it into the same thing here. So it's going to be camera name, .layer name, .frame number. Now, to separate these two, I'm going to type in n/ here and go to the PNG sequence and type in d/. It's going to make a folder called D, put all the information of the diffuse there. And for this post-process, I'm going to make a folder called N and put the post-process stuff here. Now, this last section is where we actually specify what we want. It comes with 2 by default, but it does not have them enabled. This one, I'm just going to call normal, and then I'm going to plug in the material in here. Now, it does have some defaults. You can see there's a movie render queue, world depth, world normal, world position, motion vectors. There's a lot of nice ones you can just grab here and use. For us, though, we want the specifically camera normal that we created. Now, make sure sure enable is turned on. I also am going to turn off the 32-bit precision. As you might imagine, for a JPEG, we don't really need 32-bit precision. If you're doing something that requires it, go ahead, keep it on. Just make sure that the format that you're using does support 32-bit precision. For us though, we're killing the PNG sequence, right-clicking, go to JPEG sequence, and putting that all the way through. Again, the JPEG sequence here is not matter what the file name format is, because we've turned off the beauty. If the beauty was still being rendered, it would use this information. So everything here can be left default. The collection's already set up. The holdout is all good. We're reusing the same thing here. The render layer though does need to change. So instead of diffuse, we'll call this normal. Now we can hit save. And if I go back to our output here, I'll go ahead and delete all of these. We don't need them right now. And now with everything set up, at any time, I can go ahead, double click on the movie render queue and just click render local. You can see there's all our passes at diffuse and normal, super fast because it's very low res. I can click the output right away and just open the directory and you'll see, there you go. There's our D folder, our N folder. Inside of the D folder, we have our cam 1 diffuse. There's our cam 2, cam 3, cam 4, and our normal. And if you take a look, there's our normal 1, 2, 3, 4 directions. They have different backgrounds, but that's fine. Doesn't really matter. The one thing to note though, for the normal maps, when you were to bring them in, if I grab any of them and just drag them in, you do need to open them and make sure that the compression settings is set to normal map. And under texture advanced here, you want to flip the green channel. Now it's going to look ridiculous, but I found the lighting does work under this, where if you put it up or down, is working as expected. Just flip the green channel and make sure normal is turned on. And now anytime if you want to go ahead and change the animation you're rendering, you just go in here, go to the character animations. In fact, I can just click and drag it all the way up to the top here. And now I can click this, jog forward, delete it, click the plus button, click the cut one, come here to the end. Again, I hit this end right bracket. It'll move the timeline here. And then I can immediately click render local and it'll do just those sections. And again, there you go. All 4 directions in one quick go. And nothing brings me more joy than just having one button that does the work for me, compared to manually having to change the timeline. If you extended the animation, now you have to adjust every single orientation and make sure that it lines up. That's all too much effort. This I can get behind. And using this as the base, you can start creating kind of characters like I do, just creating sprites from 3D models. It doesn't even need to have animation. You could just render out whatever you'd like from multiple angles. Nothing's stopping you from doing whatever comes to mind. And for anyone that wants it, project files are going to be available on my Patreon, where you can join these wonderful people here in supporting what I do. It really means a lot. And if you'd like to join the community, the link to that and everything else is down in the description below as always. I'd love to hear what you thought about this tutorial. Was it helpful? Are you going to be using it for something in the future? And if so, what? If you're looking for other tutorials, I highly recommend this one. I promise it's going to be good.